Hello. Today's the new moon, and instead of writing a text today, I thought I'd just send a little video instead, because honestly the energy has been really crazy these days. So yeah, sitting down and writing a text has become nearly impossible due to the circumstances, but I feel like maybe the spoken format is also quite nice for the moment, especially. So today we have a new moon, and I've been hearing a lot from people around me that they are really feeling the intensity of this Venus Cazimi, of this new moon. It feels like it's such an intense new moon. It feels like such an intense energy of new things, because it's like the Venus Cazimi is kind of like a new Venus. So if the same way that we have the moon phases of new first quarter, full moon last quarter, and the new moon, this Cazimi is like the new moon phase in a Venus cycle. So it's a new Venus phase. Then we also have this new energy of so many planets that were in the past weeks, just like in the last degrees of signs, and really kind of drawing out that learning and preparing for switches. We have this North Node change that has taken place a few weeks ago, where now the North Node and the South Node have switched signs, and they're now in Aries and Libra. And we have Pluto, who's switching signs and changing signs the first time in a very, very long time, going into Aquarius, but is currently retrograding back into Capricorn. I don't know if you can hear this in the background, but this is kind of just the energy we're in right now. There's a constant interruption. There's a constant, disruption in the flows. It's like you're making a plan to move forward, then there's another disruption. It's like you're wanting to move ahead. You see what needs to be done. You maybe feel what's right. Then you try and move forwards in that direction. And then there's all of these unexpected obstacles, all of these unexpected hurdles, where life is like, yes, but there's actually something you need to finish up here. Or yes, but this cannot be done right now and you need to wait. Or yes, but this needs to coexist with something that you didn't consider. So I feel like life is really, really challenging us all right now to step into our learnings, like to actually show up as a progressed version of ourselves. So if we've been practicing simplicity, showing up as that simplified version. If we've been practicing patience, showing up through that patience. If we've been practicing silence, showing up and maintaining that silence. But yeah, let's get a little bit into the details of the chart. So we have this sun and the moon, they're conjunct right now, and they're in Leo. And it's actually happening today. Or it already happened this morning. And they're in 23 degrees of Leo. And Leo's a fixed sign, it's a fixed energy. It's a very bold, very loud and expressive, fiery, passionate and heart-based creative force. And we also have Lilith there in 24 degrees. It's almost like a direct conjunction. So that's a lot of rawness, that's a lot of intensity. And it's also a lot of creative force. It's a lot of... I also feel it's a dance of light and darkness. It's like the illumination of dark energy. And dark energy, I don't mean that as negative energy. I just mean it as opposites. So there's a lot of illumination of opposition. There may be oppositions in desires that we really notice right now. There may be really a heightened awareness of oppositions, of wanting one thing and then not wanting to do the steps to get there, or wanting to take certain steps but not being sure about the outcome and how much desire is really there, or being in conflict about collaborations, being in conflict about the way to express something, like knowing exactly what it is you want to express but not knowing how, because maybe the old ways don't work anymore. And Venus is still very close by. She's in 18 degrees, so it's a little bit further away, but with the sun and the moon, they're both luminaries. They shine their bright, very, very, very light, and we usually take the degrees a bit wider. So the Venus is also still there in this conjunction. She's really loud right now, and yeah, Venus energy is very focused on desire. It's really asking, what is desire? What is it that wants to be attracted? What is it actually that wants to be manifested? And all of those things are really in our combined self right now, where we feel it emotionally, we feel it mentally, we feel it inside, we feel it outside. But the dark moon phase is a time of really introspecting about these themes before we make a move. It's about planning before we make a move, but also about preparing the move. So when you make a decision, you don't do that yet. It doesn't mean sitting around and waiting around. It means preparing to execute that. So right now, I also feel we're really being asked, how do we best prepare for those changes? If we feel there's a delay, if we feel there's an obstacle, what do we need to do to prepare? Because the preparation is already also the work, and the preparation is also what really pulls those things into the present moment. So it's part of the process, and it's even the most important part of the process, is making space, clearing out, organizing, preparing, stopping with the procrastinations. And this is happening in a trine also to Aries energy, where we have Chiron right now in 19 degrees, where we have the North Node right now in 28 degrees. So there's this trine, which means that there's really a heightened perception right now of what we're really afraid to do, because we maybe are ready to move forward, but it's hard. It's hard because it triggers a lot of our fear right now. But actually, it also maybe even triggers the fact that we know what will happen, and we really need to be also ready to receive that. And then the North Node is also not an easy energy to me. It's like, of course, it's the energy that is connected with our future, but the future isn't always going to be simple. The future isn't always going to be nice. So maybe we're also kind of afraid to really step into that future because we want to avoid something, and because it also may mean that something else is going to be devoured. If it's like the head of the dragon, then it also has teeth, and it's also going to chomp through matter and just take things away with it. And we may be afraid of the things that are going to be taken away from us when we really initiate something new. But we have to remember that we can't avoid change, and all we can do is to kind of collaborate with these energies, with life, and take the steering wheel. It's like we don't have control over the ocean, but you can still influence where the ship goes. And there's a big this may feel just like a really, really big feeling, this Chiron there in this placement. Yeah, we're really brought into the awareness of what fears are actually still there. And not only what fears. Chiron is not only about fears. Chiron is also an energy that is just really showing us what are we sensitized to. So what do we react to really quickly? It's the energy that really shows us what vibrations can we really quickly perceive, because maybe we have been accustomed to detecting them, maybe through trauma or just, life circumstances. And so when we really quickly detect and then often also react, it's also the thing that turns it into a gift. That's why Chiron is the wounded healer, because this mechanism of being able to detect will enable you to work with these energies in a different way than maybe other people are able to do it. So to utilize it and understand that Chiron is not only about fears and showing us our fears, but really showing us right now what are the energies that we really quickly and really easily detect. How do we want to work with them? And using the Aries energy of initiating a new way, being also aware of Aries potential to really quickly react. So understanding that quick reactions are not something bad if we allow them in the right moments. Yeah. So to also strengthen our ability to discern, so that we just know when that energy is best utilized. And there's some other interesting happenings right now. This moon and the sun, or like this whole kind of stellium with Venus and Lilith and the moon and the sun are also in square right now with Uranus in Taurus. So there's Jupiter in Taurus in 14 degrees, there's Uranus in Taurus in 23 degrees. Jupiter is a bit further away, but it's a big planet with a lot of attractive energy. So it's very close also to Venus in 18 degrees in the square. So it's still really part of the conversation. And they're in Taurus. Yeah, this is the energy of the body, of the physical realm, of really the birthed being, the container, the physical container that is created. And this square really highlights that there is a need actually for a radical change. It's not enough anymore to make little changes. It's not enough anymore to settle in with the old and trying to upkeep the old. It's actually really about finding ways to. But it's an energy right now that feels really challenging. It's not like this new innovation where we feel like, oh wow, finally I can breathe again. It's really this innovation where we feel like, oh no, I didn't want it to be like this. I hoped I could have avoided, but now it's just like, no, you can't avoid it. It cannot be avoided anymore. It doesn't want to be avoided anymore, actually. That's what I feel from this Taurus Uranus. And Uranus is not only some energy that disrupts us and that challenges us. It's essentially a gift. It's like when there's a story of Uranus is also called Prometheus, yeah, and there's a story of Prometheus in the Greek mythology, of how Prometheus gifted the fire that was reserved only for the highest deities, the gods and the goddesses, and then Prometheus actually gifted this fire to the human beings, and that just allowed for complete chaos, because now these human mortals, they suddenly had the power of fire. And yeah, it's a gift, but it comes with an intense responsibility. So really, I feel with this Uranus, we're also being called on responsibility, because all of this innovation that we see in life, and it's not just on a personal level, but really also a collective level, we see more usage of energies, of frequencies. Everyone is awakening to become an energy healer, yeah, to work with Reiki, to work with all of these things. But that also means we all need to grow in our responsibility. We use more and more AI, but that really means we need to grow in our responsibility of what do we do with that AI? How do we learn to communicate? How do we learn to integrate it in our societies in a way that we don't disrupt things that are actually essential? Because those things may also then be disrupted. And from these energies, there's a trine. There's a trine to a stellium, or a small stellium in Virgo. And Virgo really calls us to dedicate ourselves to really understanding how things are maintained, how things are built on top of each other, how consistency is needed, how things are organized, how how things work, not only in the bigger picture, but really also on the day-to-day level, on the daily level, on the mundane level, in the physical level, how things are kind of really interwoven. And Virgo can understand these interweavings of things. We have Pallas Athena there right now. We have Mercury there right now, preparing to station retrograde. We have Mars there right now, and they're all conjunct. So we have a trine from this Uranus energy, from this breakthrough, and also Jupiter and Taurus. We have a trine, a really expansive, a big flow, a big highlight to this communication between forces of action, between forces of kind of like outwards expression of angriness, but essentially that anger is a force of action, and it's a force also of boundary. It's a force of understanding worth. It's more like a consequence of other forces. It's a passion. It's a drive. It's actually a power source that's able to drive us forwards. And there's a conversation with Mercury, and Mercury is almost looking back to reflect and really also asking all of these disruptions, all of these new things, all of these changes. Which actions do we actually need to take? And which actions do we need to take on a day-to-day basis, on an hourly basis, on a minutely basis, on a weekly basis? What do we need to do in order to contribute to arriving at the destination in the way that we want? And we might not be able to have everything in control, but how to increase the probability? To increase the probability, maybe we need to even understand probabilities. We need to understand cause and influence, correlation, and applying those things into the now, applying them into the mundane, applying them into our conversation, applying them into our daily habit, and really then learning to become integral with that force of action, because it's that force of action. Call it the yang force. Essentially, it's outwardness, it's expression, it's piercing through. It's the energy that allows something, a desire, a wish, an idea, to then be executed. So it's the action of execution. And really, how do we need to communicate also with ourselves, with our systems, and what do our actions communicate to our systems, to our family body, to our partnership body, to our social body, our collectiveness? What is being communicated through our actions? There's a lot of trine energy here. There's a lot of trines. And another thing that is there loud right now is a direct opposition between Juno in 0 degrees of Leo and Pluto, which is in 28 degrees of Capricorn, moving into Aquarius, but right now it's still backwards into Capricorn. So this is really a conversation about contracts, about maintaining integrity, not just anywhere, but within commitments that you've made to yourself, but not only to yourself on a daily level, but really on the level of your purpose. It's about soul commitments, life commitments, purpose commitments, evolutionary commitments. So also the commitment that life made as a species to continue evolving, the commitment that the energy that created us, that we are, committed itself to by beginning this process. And it's that conversation and that commitment that is really being highlighted right now. There's a push and pull, and there's a constant face-to-face interrogation. It feels like a process of interrogation. And the thing is, Juno is already in Leo. It's in 0 degrees. It's at the beginning of something new. It's at the beginning of being able to express from the heart. Pluto is not in 0 degrees Aquarius. but it's in 28 degrees of Capricorn. So it's a little bit behind. It's cleaning up processes that are still left from the era of Pluto and Capricorn. And this is important because we don't want to move forwards and still drag all of that old stuff with us. That's why we go to cleansing. That's why we go to healing ceremonies, because we don't want that anymore. So why should we now continue moving forwards without actually properly cleaning up things from the past? So that's why this feels incredibly intense right now, because there's a micro disalignment, but actually it may not be a disalignment. It just may need to cause a little more conscious effort of witnessing that dissonance, of witnessing that distance, and learning how to emotionally bridge it until it's physically aligned again, until Pluto is actually physically in Aquarius. And Juno will continue moving, so Juno won't stay there waiting. Juno will not stay there, but Juno is right now really reminding Pluto not only to look back into the past, but also reminding Pluto of the commitment that is there in the next phase, that is now needed to focus on in order to move forwards. Pluto really represents our evolutionary force on a soul level. And another thing we have is a Libra Aries axis, where this Chiron and North Node energy that I spoke about earlier, that is in trine with this new moon, is also in opposition to Ceres and the part of fortune in Libra right now. And this is really about harvesting. And it's if you're in Berlin, it's also the ascendant line. So it's really about how we show up and how we harvest things in life through showing up. It's really also asking us questions about how do we show up in life, in our relations to the outside, to the plant world, to our friends and family, to our communities, our projects, our collaborations, our business life, whatever. Your animals that you take care of. How do you show up to those? And how are you nourishing that? But also, what are you collecting from it? What are you actually gaining from it? Being aware, and in direct opposition to the North Node and Chiron. So being aware of the triggers and the wounds that may still be there, and the kind of vision of the future and the feeling for how you want things to be more in the future. But it's closer opposite to Chiron, so that might be highlighted. And about understanding impulsiveness. Libra Aries is a conversation between understanding impulsivity and balance. Libra is about balancing, finding that balance again and again and again and again. And then moving out of it, going back into it. Moving out of it, going back into it. So these signs, they are always on an axis. They are always like each part of the zodiac wheel. They are all conversational partners, and on a spectrum they are two extremes of a spectrum, but we are not here to only embody one spectrum, and we all have all of these qualities inside of us. So it's also about sometimes supplementing where we have some extreme tendencies, because we have a lot of energy that is focused in one area in our life. Sometimes it may help us to supplement energies from areas that we aren't so focused on, and to make a conscious choice, a conscious effort to include those energies so that we can have a bigger picture, a more full spectrum of experience, so that we can balance ourselves. And this series, this harvest and this fortune energy in Libra, it's in trine, there are so many trines, to Vesta in Gemini, which is in turn square to Mercury in this little stellium in Virgo. So Vesta is really about finding the heart fire, the hearth, what sustains you, what keeps your light burning. What are the things that keep us from not falling into a depression again and again? What are those things lighting us up, giving us energy? What are those things that make life worth living? It's not only about desire, what do we want to experience, that's Venus, but what is it worth living for? And understanding that in relation to what needs to be balanced. It's an air trine, so it's air and air. It's Gemini and Libra. It's really about communication and balance. What needs to be communicated? And I think that's also a bigger theme here, communication. There's a square between this aspect and Mercury and Mars. So Mercury and Mars really need to listen to that fire, really need to listen to that Vesta. So or Hestia is another name. It's the energy that is of a higher value because it gives us a higher or a deeper, a more connected, a greater feeling of worth than anything else. And Mercury, our communication and our intellect, and Mars, our force of acting, really need to see where do they not want to align themselves to this energy and why, and what can be brought in to balance that out, and where can we make a conscious effort to really hold the things valuable that are of value. And we need to show up in that way. We need to make that our identities. We need to, of course, we always get rid of our identities when we also have this spiritual awakening and we try to get rid of the ego, get rid of the identity. But I believe that all we're doing is we're recreating identities, we're recycling identities, we're crafting new identities, because each identity moves us forwards, and then we drop it and let it go, and then create a new one. It's kind of like lifting your feet and walking. And each space in between the steps you take is an identity that's created, and then you step down again and you ground it and you release it, and then there's something new. But what is it right now that keeps us integral? What is it right now that helps us? What is it right now that allows our ego to actually unfold a purpose, a bigger purpose? So this energy, it's really intense. So if you're feeling really intense, like I am, just know that it's okay. Just know that you're not alone. And know also that you have really the answers inside. You listen to yourself. And also I want to take a moment to just say that listening to yourself does not always mean you have to sit down and meditate. I'm noticing this sometimes, that it really depends on your personal response systems. So if you are constantly triggered and you're constantly stuck in a freeze state of response, of nervous system response, if you continue to meditate and wait for the answers to come in, you may prolong that sensation of freeze nervous system response, and actually your body may benefit from supplementation of a different response. So it might be helpful for you to do little actions instead, and to trust that your answers will come by doing little actions. And vice versa, if you're the other way around, if you're used to constantly just acting and just doing and kind of doing before thinking personalities, for you maybe it might be beneficial to sit down and meditate a while. But this is not for everybody, and we need to learn how to recognize what we need on an individual level, what we need on a unique level, and to understand also that we need to supplement things right now, because we need balance and integrity. So yeah, it's okay to feel intense, but it's also important to ask what to do. How do we want to respond to that intensity? How do we usually do it? And how do we want to do it instead? And what helps us? And what actually doesn't help us. So for some people that may mean more independence, and for others that may mean reaching out more and asking for help. There really is no right and wrong, and I just want to encourage everybody to listen to your own heart. I just want you to know that you know yourself best, that you really also have access to your own understanding of your purpose and what you need, and that I want to give you permission to speak out those needs to yourself first, and then that will trickle into your life. And it's an intense time, but we can also learn to trust ourselves in this time. And trusting ourselves doesn't mean excluding the world, but it means maintaining a healthy, integral, and honesty-based relationship with the self. And that's a communication on all levels of the self, a spiritual practice of how you're eating, and that also doesn't mean eating only healthy. It means eating in a way that suits you, and understanding why you make decisions, and being in a conscious communication with yourself in each moment of decision making, and then learning when to say yes and when to say no, how to negotiate with yourself, how to make what's the word when you like, how to also make a move, a compromise, when to make compromises, but also when to stay stern. So finding a way to give yourself space for that. And the most important thing, I feel, is to really stay connected with your heart, understanding that you're doing the best you can. If you really commit to that, then it's gonna be okay. And you can recommit at any moment of your life. Taking some time to clear out the old, little by little. It's still a great time to declutter our spaces and to be creative. A good time for creative expression through writing, and even through reading. Reading and taking in information can also be an act of creativity in the mind, and imagining, envisioning. And with that, I will close this video. I hope that even though it's a lot of terminology or aspects, and it may be difficult when we don't see it visually, I hope that you still feel like you were able to receive some of the core insights, and also tune into your own insights. And I'll talk to you again soon. Life keeps on cycling. I wish you all a beautiful, beautiful day. Lots of love, lots of sunshine, or nourishment through rain. And I hope that you are all in beautiful processes. And I trust and believe in every one of you that you're on your path. And that you also deserve to feel good about yourself, to love yourself. Have a beautiful Wednesday.